pass game, because this, to me, ultimately is where this game is going to be decided.
No, there's no question. I love the matchup between Notre Dame's pass catchers and Wisconsin's pass defenders. Now, the key here is giving Jack Coan some time. If they can give, and we've said this for the last 3 weeks, I get that, but we've seen what Jack Coan can do when he gets time. We saw the second half Jack Coan against Purdue. We saw, what happens when he can climb the pocket and do some things. That's what needs to happen. Now, I'm not saying that the offensive line is going to give him a perfect pocket every single time, but you have to keep Wisconsin out of your backfield. You have to. You have to be able to throw when you want to, not when you have to. Now, I do think the pass game is going to be an extension of the run game this week. Just because we talked about some of that exterior stuff, I do think the pass game is going to open up the run game, is going to help it out a little bit, but you got to take your shots downfield too.
You mean to say the opposite, correct, Vince? The run game is going to be an extension of the pass game.
Yeah. That you're throwing it outside, which is essentially a run.
Right. You're using your pass game to create opportunities in the run game, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is a reversed of what Notre Dame's been for a long time.
Absolutely.
But it's necessary. And because look, that's where your weapons are. I also am coming to one thing in this game as you look at matchups. I'm giving Kevin Austin 2 or 3 shots in the first half. And you've got to get his confidence back after last week.
Sure.
And that's going to be a big thing for me. Now, here's something I'd be curious to see this week, is I want to see a little bit more creativity from a formational standpoint. I think Notre Dame's got plenty of creative schemes. But now this week is you need to do those things out of some different looks. And that's something I'm going to be curious to see. Maybe put trips into the boundary a couple times, see how Wisconsin lines up. Can you get them in with emotion out of that look? Can you, is there safety cheat over? If you have trips into the boundary with Michael Mayer and Braden Lindsey, do they overreact to that, thinking that maybe there's a screen coming, and then that gives you a little bit more room to work a one-on-one to the field? They're going to have to sort of probe Wisconsin a little bit early formationally. I hope Notre Dame comes out and does a lot of different things from a formational standpoint, just to see how Wisconsin reacts to it.
Yeah.
And then say, okay, here's how we know we can get these isolations, and then you go after them. But they're going to have to move the receivers around a little bit this week. After last week, Purdue knew where Kevin Austin was going to be every time the ball was snapped, and they could have a Kevin Austin plan. We're going to be physical with him, whatever. Okay, put him in the slot. Stack him behind the tight end. Put Michael Mayer into the boundary, stack him behind, Kevin Austin behind Michael Mayer. I want to see some – look, Tommy Rees is a real creative offensive coach from a scheme standpoint. My problem with Notre Dame, and it's been this way, Vince, for years, is they are far too scheme-oriented. That was Charlie Weiss's problem, right? After the 05 and 06 team, basically all the guys that were part of that left, and those guys were all taught how to play football by the previous staff. And for as bad as Ty Willingham was in a lot of ways, his staff taught the fundamentals pretty well. They lacked any creativity and scheme. Well, then Charlie comes in with a group that had already been taught fundamentals, and then he brought great scheme, and we saw what happened. But once all those guys were gone and it came down to it was Charlie's staff that had taught the fundamentals, they were a mistake-prone team for 3 years. This has always been Brian Kelly's problem, in my opinion, since he's been here, is it's way too scheme-driven. And that's fine. I love scheme. You need great scheme.
Sure.
But you also need to make sure your kids know how to play it, right? But at the other point of it too is sometimes your scheme has to be you need to be creative with your scheme before the ball is even snapped. And that's where we haven't seen enough. Like, to me, like when they're bunched, you know what's coming pretty much. These are the pass routes they run out of that. Maybe run some bunch and then attack with some vertical stuff, instead of just always running, the crossers, do some different things this week formationally that's going to keep Wisconsin off balance. Because if you can get Wisconsin off balance early, that's where they're going to have success, Vince. That's where they're going to have an opportunity to really move the ball, really have some success. Because when Notre Dame's pass game is clicking, it's really good. And it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin is a really well-coached secondary. It's a very experienced secondary. It's not a super athletic secondary. Right. And Notre Dame can have some success. It's a lot like Purdue's. Experienced, not super talented. And if Notre Dame can win some of those matchups on the perimeter, protect the quarterback, give him time, move the pocket. That's another one. They got to move the pocket. They just can't have the quarterback. Look, your pocket's rarely clean. So if the other team always knows you're going to be in the pocket, they have a plan for it. Move the pocket, boot it, roll out, do something to kind of throw off that, run some more early screens. And it can't just always be running back screens because, hey, newsflash, your running backs are really good, and every team you play knows it. They're keen on those guys.
Right, exactly.
So maybe you do a free release where you send Kyron Williams just screaming out of the backfield, and he just goes right up the seam. You take that linebacker with him, and then you run a little tunnel right underneath it to Braden Lindsey, something like that. You've got to have some creativity. Know who they're trying to stop, and then use that to your advantage. That's something we need to see more of from Tommy Rees, because this part of the game right here has to be where Notre Dame has success.
Has to be.
It's an absolute must.
And kind of building off of what you just said, Notre Dame has the advantage here, so they need to take advantage of that advantage. Does that mean okay? But no, I want to see more stuff across, like you had mentioned, because Notre Dame's guys are faster than Wisconsin guys, and so if they're going to go man to man, like we've seen a lot of man to man because teams are coming after the quarterback. If we see that against Wisconsin, let's get a foot race going. Let's have those guys follow Notre Dame's guys across the field, and if they're going to pass off, let them pass off, because they're starting from a stopped position to a full speed Notre Dame, skill position, running. I just don't see how Notre Dame doesn't have the advantage there. If you can get Notre Dame's receivers and skill players on the move, I think that you're going to see all kinds of wide open opportunities in the pass game. And I think Jack Coan is good enough to find the guys that he needs to find if he's given enough time to do so. The other thing is, and you mentioned this in the post-game show, they need to have an outlet. They need to have, when Jack Coan's getting rushed so he can get rid of the ball, they need to have that. That needs to be built into the scheme, because we haven't seen that enough. We've seen vertical stuff where he can't get rid of the ball. There's nowhere to get rid of it to. I need to see more hot routes, things of that nature, so that Jack Coan can get rid of the ball. Because if he does, and Wisconsin's bringing heat, well, a lot of times that heat is coming from the linebacker level. And if you got a hot route right there and he can just dunk it off, I like Notre Dame's chances with their guys in space. So it can be beneficial to them too.
I would love to see Tommy Rees dig into the time machine a little bit. I've always found, I would always go back 2-3 years when I was breaking down a really good team and try to find somebody that had some success against them, assuming some of the personnel was similar and the philosophy was similar. And Purdue's had some really good success throwing the football against Wisconsin, and they've had success moving the ball and scoring on Wisconsin in recent years. If you go back to 2018, Wisconsin beat Purdue 47-44. Purdue threw for 386 yards in that game, 4 touchdowns. A year later, Purdue went out and had 326 yards passing and 3 touchdowns in a game where they lost 45-24, but the offense for Purdue moved the ball. The Notre Dame defense isn't giving up 45 points to Wisconsin. They have a way better defense than what they had.
Absolutely.
So, you look at that. They've been prone to getting ripped up with the pass game. They gave up 407 passing yards in 2018 to Nebraska. Nebraska the next year, they shut Nebraska down, kept their points down. Well, then, that's kind of been one of those matchups. Say, hey, look, why are some of these teams having some success throwing the football? What are things that they're doing? The thing that they're doing is they're getting Wisconsin's secondary in chase mode. That's the difference. They're saying your guys can't run with my guys. And you can't always just have them in chase mode vertically, because there's ways around that. You have to have them vertically. You have to do it. You have to do the horizontal stretch with your 4 verts. I'm all for that stuff. But you have to be able to do flood concepts, which Notre Dame has done. You have to be able to utilize ways to create openings in the middle of the field. One thing I haven't seen Notre Dame do a lot yet, which is a scheme that teams like Ohio State, Oklahoma do, which is what I really like, is they use their running backs to just like fly out on quick wheels and see how teams play it, and then start bringing guys from the backside to replace that. So what we're seeing now is Notre Dame's had some success throwing the football to the perimeter to their backs, right? Kyron Williams has made some plays in the screen game. So is Chris Tyree. Chris Tyree had 2 really good gains on swing passes this week. where you just kind of jet just like on a quick dart route from your back, and then you run your tight end on a vertical or a corner or something, and bring Braden Lindsey on and just outrun that guy. And all of a sudden, that linebacker's running with your tight end,
right.
The flat defender's running out to the flat, and all of a sudden you've now created an opening over the middle of the field, as opposed to bringing everyone inside when you attack. So when Notre Dame attacks the middle of the field, they kind of bring everybody to the middle. That's been one of the issues. I want to see some things where they run their flood concepts, which are really effective this week, and that's why I'm thinking we may see this. They hit a flood concept for a big play against Purdue. They hit a post out, like a post over top and then an out cut. Now, okay, Purdue's going to see that you've been running smash, which is a hitch, 6-yard kind of stop, and guy will do different things, and then a corner route, so about 12 to 15, and then break outside at a 45-degree angle. That's called smash. It's a high-low concept on the perimeter. Well, teams are playing that now. They're trying to get that inside linebacker up underneath that corner route to reroute him, and then the safety plays over top and hoping that the corner can kind of come underneath it, because Notre Dame's had a lot of success with it. Michael Mayers hit it. They hit it a couple times against Toledo. They hit that concept on Saturday. Purdue's going to have a plan. So you need to know that. And what's my counter to it? Well, one thing we would do a lot of times when we were really good at running smash, Vince, or we were really good at running the post, the post corner, the post out, and the floods and stuff like that, what we were able to do was we would then bring sail routes or cross routes or drive routes from the backside. So when that team would utilize their backers, their inside backers, to try to take advantage of the backs and the tight ends, then you bring somebody backside on a speed route that says, hey, now you want to clear out and take that, then we got something for you coming from the other side. We need to see some stuff like that, because Notre Dame has the personnel for it.
Absolutely.
And I think if they do that kind of stuff, that's where I think Notre Dame is going to have, if they can get in space. When Ohio State has ripped them up, it's been you get them in space. When Purdue has ripped them up, it's getting them in space. That's what Notre Dame needs to figure out a way to do. And if they do, then that's how you're going to see this team move the ball, come up with the big plays. And that's where the run game comes in. Because if they start getting that stuff going on the perimeter,
then
Purdue has to. Yeah. They've got to go nickel.
Wisconsin,
they've got to get one of their big. Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I say Purdue?
Yeah, it's okay.
They have to get one of those big boys out. Now all of a sudden the field widens. Now you've got that chance to maybe hit Kyron Williams on a quick draw or a quick trap, which people have been talking about, or just the inside zone where there's one less guy to account for Kyron Williams or Chris Tyree. And that's where your big plays can come from in the run game. So that's what we've said. You've got to reverse engineer your offense essentially this week. Yeah. And you got to start outside, start deep, work your way back, outside towards the inside, do some of those different things. Be prepared for them to self-scout yourself. Here's what we've been really good with.
Yeah.
So now we know Purdue or Wisconsin's going to be prepared to stop that. What can we do to take it? And that's what great coaches do. And, we saw a little bit of that on Saturday against Purdue. We talked about this on the Avery Davis touchdown route. Notre Dame's been having some success with their smash concepts. Purdue was playing the smash. They'd already hit it twice. They'd already hit an outcut twice. So they leaned Avery outside. That guy bit hard, and then he beat him back to the post. Bam, 62-yard touchdown. That's the kind of creativity, the kind of using what they're going to do to stop your best stuff against them to start creating up another opportunity. If we see more of that from Tommy Rees this week, Notre Dame's going to have some success, assuming they can protect the quarterback.
Well, what I will say before we get into the scoring is I think that's what the identity of this Notre Dame team needs to be. I mean, just based on what we've seen in the first 3 weeks, they're not going to be the smash mouth run team that they've been the past few years. They need to work outside in and that needs to be their identity. And they can be really good at it. I really feel like they could be good at that if they just embrace it. Just embrace that that's who you are. There's nothing wrong with that. You can put a lot of points on the board being that kind of a team. Just embrace it and run with it, literally and figuratively. And I think you could be very successful. And that's what I want to see.
So, Vince, before we go to scoring real quick, we did have a super chat from Tommy Guns.
We did.
I just want to draw attention to my Rocco theory.
Did you read
essentially,
it?
I did.
Okay.
So essentially what Tommy is saying, and it's not – I don't have it anymore, Vince. I've been bumped. I don't know if you have it up there.
Look.
But essentially his Rocco theory is that he doesn't think Rocco Spindler's playing because Rocco is playing too aggressively, basically, He's not taking coaching, so he's not. What did he say?
He's not refusing to take coaching. Is what it was.
Not doing the back pedal, like meaning he's trying to block the right way and be physical. He's not doing the back pedal thing, which I thought was very funny, Tommy. So
yes,
really, really well done. Really
good
well
stuff.
Done.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Appreciate the super chat there, buddy. Of course, but yeah, he's too aggressive. He's making the other guys look bad.
Yeah, we can't play him. Can't play that guy. That's great.